my email. Hey everybody, this is Eileen Himel with In Phase, In Tune with Autism podcast. Here we'll discuss mindset, efforts to increase mind-body connection, and much more as it pertains to autism. My hope is that this information will reach those who need it and help provide a better understanding of the mind and body of someone with autism. Okay, let me try this again. So, welcome to the podcast. This is just a short clip to let you know that definitely there are chunks of this podcast missing. I'm in between technologies right now and trying to figure out which one to use for my consistent podcast recordings. And when I listen back, chunks were missing, but I'm still putting it out there because the essence of the information and the message is still there. So I'm excited to share that with you and get back on my podcast game. But yeah, if it just cuts off, which it will a couple of times, just roll with it. And we'll be back next week with better connection and technology. All right, welcome to the In Phase, In Tune with Autism podcast. My name is Eileen Himel, your host, and I am the owner of a company called In Phase, In Tune with Autism. And I work with the nonspeaking autistic community through the lens of presuming competence, which we are going to talk about today. And I work with the Letterboard and training purposeful movement in the body of non-speakers with apraxia. And I also have an online side of my business where I work with parents in the mental health and spiritual space. So today our topic is about mainly presuming competence and the brain-body disconnect when it comes to non-speaking autistics. I'm going to give a brief overview of what I'm actually talking about. So when I talk about the brain-body disconnect in non-speaking autism, it's called apraxia, and what it essentially means is that there is a brain-body disconnect. So if the brain is telling the body to do something, it's not going to necessarily do it because their motor system is affected. Okay, so for them having access to their purposeful motor, something that they think that they want to do, and then doing it with their body, executing that movement with their body is a process that's not connected. It's a process that's not easeful. And to me, the therapies that are on the right side of history and what we should be doing with this population in the schools from the very beginning is really understanding that that is what these kids are dealing with, the brain-body disconnect, and that we should be catering to and putting our energy into providing treatments that are going to lay down the new neural pathways in the brain for access to purposeful movement. Okay, and I know if you're just hearing about this, some of these terms can feel a little hard, but when you're breaking it down, when we're talking about non-speaking autism, plenty of these people have apraxia. So what this means is that they don't have direct control over their body. Okay. And so a lot of times the movements that we see in non-speaking autistics is conditioned movements, just meaning that there's things in the environment that have reinforced their body to do specific movements. So you'll see conditioned movements. So not necessarily purposeful, right? It's something that's been reinforced in the past, and that signal is being sent out in the environment and it's triggering their body to move in a certain way. So that's a conditioned movement. There's impulsive movements. We all know what impulses are. It's been described by spellers as urge without thought. And so an impulse is something that neurotypical people with a typically working motor system has integrated, right? We still have impulses, but we can override them. Okay, so we might still have impulses, but most of the time we can override them. A lot of time the movements might be reflexive. We know what reflexes are. And also their movements might be, what I've learned is just they're processing energies in the environment. You know, we are getting energies from the environment all the time, and our body does a pretty good I won't say that. So we're getting energies in the environment all the time that we may or may not be processing. I process my own energies these days through daily breath work because what's happening to most of us, which we're not going to get too into today, but I definitely plan on going in depth in a future podcast because I'm committed to podcasting like once a week, babe. I'm not going to stop. So we are getting energies from the environment, but most of us are so socially conditioned to just hold ourselves in a certain way. We're not necessarily processing those energies, or if we are, they're coming out in some type of blow up or irritation at some point in time. And that's okay. We're all human. So a lot of the movements that you'll see from non-speaking autistics is them processing energies in the environment, moving like this, jumping up and down, running around, bouncing. So they're not connected to their motor system like we are. Therefore, they can't show up to social situations doing what we've all been conditioned to do with our motor, right? Which is, we've been conditioned to look like we're attending by looking with our eyes and by nodding our head. And that's how we have equated, oh, someone's listening to me because they're looking at me and they're nodding their head. And that's how I know they understand. That's what we've equated. Motor system does not equal comprehension. Just because someone's nodding their head and looking at you doesn't mean that they understand you. The perfect example of this is when somebody's giving me directions and I'm like, yeah, when I know that I'm not listening and I'm going to look it up on Google Maps later. So, getting back to that brain-body disconnect, and we're going to segue into presuming competence, but people who are non-speaking autistic, their bodies are very sensitive and they are processing the energies in the environment. They're not tuning into the motor response of looking at you and going like this whenever you're talking. So what we've mistaken this as is that they don't understand. We've mistaken this as they're not listening when they absolutely are. Just because their motor is different and challenged does not mean that they don't comprehend what's coming in. They hear everything, they understand everything. Usually, and I'm speaking very generally, but in most cases, at the age level that they're at, or in most cases above. This is what I've seen in my experience, that they understand above the average child or young adult, whatever they are at their age level. Okay, so that's the brain-body disconnect, okay? So they're not showing up like a typical person with a typically working motor system because they can't. Because they can't. They have apraxia. Okay, this has nothing to do with their comprehension. Nothing at all to do with their comprehension. So they are comprehending everything, though they can't show up and show us that they're comprehending everything as we would typically expect to see. So this is where presuming competence comes in, and the art of presuming competence, which is so important right now in this paradigm shift that we're going through. So when I talk about the paradigm shift, there was old paradigm, which we've all been conditioned under, and especially in regards to non-speaking autism, old paradigm was, oh, they don't understand very much. They're very low cognitively, because whenever I test their knowledge of objects and I ask them to touch the cup and they touch the ball instead of the cup, then I know that they don't know what a cup is. Okay, wrong. Again, if I told them to touch the cup and they went to reach out and they touched the ball, why couldn't they touch the cup? Because initiation of and having access to purposeful motor and purposefully moving in a way that a typical person would is very hard for them. So coming at testing their knowledge or intelligence from that angle is completely inaccurate. Okay, so this is why presuming competence is so important, because we're moving from that old flawed paradigm, which was radiating from an untruth, very much not true. So it's very distorted, so much discord, and we're not going to get into too much at this moment about how much anxiety that can cause for the non-speaker, but all of that is wrong, right? And when you're moving from a point of just like not truth, you're moving from distortion. You're not seeing the whole picture. Therefore, you're not moving forward. Things are frustrating, right? Parents, I know you know what I'm talking about. So we're moving to the new paradigm of greater truth. So, what we must do is we must presume competence in their intellect, especially if you've just found out about presuming competence, an 11-year-old and they're not a baby. Words have been conditioned from that untruth, right? All of your actions have been conditioned in that way. And guess what? Because their bodies are so highly conditioned, this is where it's at. So, since their bodies are so highly conditioned, their bodies are responding in ways that you've put meaning on. So it's kind of like, you thought your reality was this, but it's actually this. And now it's time to untangle all of this with all these things that your thoughts and your words and your actions were lined up with, and creating your perspective that actually wasn't true, and move it over here to, okay, what I'm actually dealing with is a competent person who has a body that works differently, has a body who's very sensitive to sensory information, who has a body that they don't have direct access to their purposeful motor like a neurotypical person would, right? Okay, so that is what we're getting into today. The brain body disconnect and presuming competence and how important it is. What I really want to shine a light on is that when it comes to I've been referring to it as is an art, because it is, because it's more than just, okay, now I know this truth and now there's a lot to untangle, especially when you are engaging in things like the spelling relationship and you're a parent to a non-speaker and you're trying to begin the letterboard relationship. And you just can't begin the letterboard relationship with the old thoughts and the old words and the old ways of relating. And you have to start integrating the new way. I want to talk about the specific piece of belief, because a lot of people talk about belief as if it doesn't matter, as if it's cliche. Oh, okay, you believe it, but is it true? Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Sorry, I'm drinking my coffee. So, in this process, belief and understanding true belief is probably one of the most important things that you could pay attention to, because belief is energy. When you think about when you truly believe something, when you truly expect something, that holds an energy. It emanates, it radiates out, it's a signal. And when you don't believe something, whenever you have disbelief in something, that also has an energy. And so, if there's one thing that I learned from the non-speakers and my experience with working with them over the last, a decade, but I've been presuming competence since 2017, 2018. What I've learned is that energy is real and energy doesn't lie, and that you're always embodying something and you're sending out that signal and you're attracting back that signal. And also, I want to teach it like this, and I will be teaching a class on this in November. I think it's the first Tuesday in November. I'll post it later. So I want you to think about energy as it creates actual pathways. So even though it's invisible, let's pretend that it creates actual physical pathways and walls and blocks, where in this energy of belief, this set of circumstances is allowed to happen because there's the pathway for it. There's the environment for it. There's the space that it's allowed to happen in. And then let's say the energy of disbelief, it's like, these are the pathways of disbelief. And these are the pathways of things that are allowed to happen within this disbelief. And no, this might sound abstract, but I'm trying to break it down simply because this is true and this is real. And this is the difference between a letterboard relationship taking off and actually working, and between it not, and it being very frustrating. And this is for my non-speaking autism parents, because you are the ones who have been around your children every single day, and you are the ones that have formed those energetic relationships based on your beliefs of them and who they are. Here's the kicker: because their bodies are so bound by the energies in the environment and they don't have direct access over their purposeful motor, their bodies have formed conditioned movements around you. And it's not just you, it's around everyone. So you have to come to the table with deciding that I'm working on this. I am like a detective to see where am I buying into the disbelief of my child's intellect? Where am I using the old paradigm and mistaking that their body is doing something purposeful when it's really they're just doing something conditioned, or it's they're processing the energies in the environment, right? Or it's something that's super bizarre and we're thinking it's not good because of how we've been socially conditioned, but really it's just their body that needs to go through something. The more impact we can create from moving within our families, within our systems, within society, in truth, when it comes to non-speaking autistics. So I watch myself a lot, and here's the tip that I want to give to parents or non-speaking autism teachers who are on the right side of history. I want to say, really always remember the brain body disconnect. And if a child is going through dysregulation, don't say, well, they want to do this or they don't want to do this, and just like assume and put meaning on what their body's doing. And I'll give an example. I was working at a school. I won't say what school, but I had a client who has a very sensitive body. He had some really, really tough body stuff to work through. And I don't know what was dysregulating him. I wasn't there at this point in time, but they were trying to go outside and his body got extremely dysregulated, and the teacher was just frustrated, like, come on, like, come outside type thing. Maybe I don't know what it was, but she was telling maybe he actually did want to go outside, but there was something that was like triggering his body at that moment, and he just needed a moment to move through that dysregulation and come back down to regulation. And she was like, no part of him wanted to go outside. And it's just that's the flaw right now. That's one of the big flaws. It's like us putting direct meaning on what their body is doing when they're having a whole entire different experience. You know, people who are neurotypical and their senses are integrated, you have your senses and you see, you hear, you taste, and that's your simple experience. These guys are going through much more depth, experiencing things at a much higher caliber. I believe, actually, I know because a non speaker has said that they had to learn how to discern where certain sensory information was coming from. If it was a sound, they had to learn, okay, this is a sound, right? So they're dealing with a lot. And so what they need is people who understand. They need people who understand the brain body disconnect. They need people who understand how to presume competence fully, because when you're presuming competence fully, then what you're doing is you're opening up doors to whole new experiences that can happen. You're opening up new energies within their bodies where they can have more access to their purposeful motor if you're truly presuming competence and you're truly encouraging that. But if you're not, then they're bound to be in their past conditioned bodies at times. It's just the way it is. And it's what I've seen. It's what I've seen. Yeah. Message for today is to start really, okay, my child or my student is this age. And so that means that they understand everything at this age level. So I'm going to talk to them from this point of view, right? From this point of truth. And I'm going to understand that whatever their body's dealing with, I don't know what their body's dealing with. I think just coming from that point of view, that child's whole system can begin to relax, especially if they're living in an environment that feels like this. It's like, oh, these people know what I'm dealing with, right? So I'm really excited because I just believe, ow, my glasses are hurting. I just believe that I'm going to keep using my voice. I'm going to keep connecting with the right people, which I already have connected with some amazing people who feel very in alignment with me. And I'm wanting to create a school, but multiple schools And at this point, I don't know. I don't know what it's gonna be like. I also feel pulled in the direction of me and my husband. My husband's a chiropractor, and we were looking at functional neurology because he was looking into that. He's interested in a million things, and he's like a freaking genius if you know him. But we're like, okay, the issue is the body and the reflexes are not integrated and all these things. So we were kind of looking in that direction. I'm like, okay, maybe that can be the direction we go in and have a functional neurology place, and branched off is a school or like a spot that works purposeful movement, giving these kids and these young adults and adults more access to their purposeful motor and control over their body while having workers completely presuming competence, an environment that is an immersed environment in presuming competence. Because let me tell you, it is so different, such a different energy, such a different experience when you are in a building where everybody has for years understood the brain body disconnect and you're presuming competence nonstop, to going into a building where nobody understands that. Everybody thinks that it's not evidence-based or whatever. And, they're treating these kids in my experience and untruth. It's just it's so different. It's so different. And it's a whole different energy imprint. And what I know is that these guys' bodies are very subject to the energetic imprint of a place and a space. So yeah, I'm excited to keep talking on these matters, moving in a bigger direction, more than just serving one person at a time, which serving one person at a time is a beautiful thing. And I love doing it. But I'm wanting to create greater impact within the community, within society. Again, I will be teaching a class on presuming competence and the brain body disconnect. It will be called the art of presuming competence, and we will talk in depth about our past conditioning. We will talk in depth about what is presuming competence and exactly how to do it, and practical things you can do to connect with your child with their awareness beyond their body. And there will be a spiritual component to it because that's the way that I see it. Okay, here we go again, switching back to audio because the ending got deleted and there are some random parts in there that also got deleted, but I think it flowed okay. And getting back to the class that I was talking about that I will be teaching in November, it's called The Art of Presuming Competence. And I believe to get a holistic point of view, and in my experience, the best point of view that has served me with helping my clients access their purposeful motor and feel most regulated is coming from this point of view that I will be teaching within this class. And it's really connecting with the one on the inside, piercing through, looking past all of the body stuff, really understanding that the awareness and consciousness inside and what the body presents is two different things in all of us, actually. If you are interested in enrolling, my email is inphaseintune@gmail.com. I will be back next week. I'm excited to more in depth and come from a more 5D energetic side because that is where I'm pulled, and that is the information that I'm lit up by sharing. And I know a lot of other people who are in this community are also on that path. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Peace.